Well, hello to you, human watching, and if you're just here for the very quick list, it's right here. This is my opinion, and it's from easiest to hardest. And really, like, if you're just here for a quick opinion, you don't need to read any of this. If you need a little tiny bit more insight, you can read this. And if you want to hear my insights about my ranking here, then you can stay for the whole video and hear me yapping about difficulty opinions. Holy shit! I don't know why people, I don't know why we people care so much about difficulty rankings in what is effectively a trial and error game. Like Touhou project, it's kind of a trial and error game, and people are quite obsessed with ranking the difficulties in trial and error games, in my experience. And since over the years, a bunch of people have often asked me about my opinions about the PND specifically, I am here to make an actual video about it, so I can link people to it and satisfy the curiosity of anyone that is, well, how do I fucking speak English? That is curious about my opinion, because recently I actually managed to finally get all the PNDs ready, and I think I'm ready to discuss them. First I need to lower the volume of my music I have in the background a bit, and yeah, I think I'll start from the easiest to the hardest. And before I do that, let me actually explain how I judge the difficulty of the PNDs. It's based on these three factors, which are strats, survival requirement, and the mechanics. And the TLDR is, for strats, I just mean just how many strategies and techniques the game demands of you for that specific PND. And there is like a tiny exception for MOF, because with MOF being so close to the world record, you'd expect the strategy requirement to be the max, but it's actually not. This is because the devil is in the details when it comes to Mountain of Fate, and the vast majority of the score in MOF is really easy to get, and when it comes to adding the score needed to get the PND, you need to do quite a bit, but you don't, it's not like the hardest or anything like that. It's comparable to, as you can see, like EoSD, and yeah, at least in my opinion, that is. Yeah, that's basically, MOF is realistically going to be the only exception when it comes to like strategies. And the survival aspect, I believe, is very intuitive. It's just how much dodging the category requires out of you. And because some categories, as you do strategies, you don't really need to do or be capable of doing raw dodging, or be good at it at least. And other categories demand a lot of raw dodging of you if you want to get decent scores. Last but not least is the mechanics. Which I believe is sometimes underestimated by people, but you know, some games have really simple mechanics, and you don't have to like think about them a lot or like care. You just immediately jump into the game and start scoring. You only need to do a little bit of research over the mechanics. And then there are games that are packed with unintuitive mechanics, which will make you go crazy for a while before you can even start doing serious practicing over the strategies that you are gonna need. And strats are more relevant than survival requirement, which is more relevant than mechanics. And obviously this ranking is based on a single shot, which different shots are likely to influence the ranking, because for instance there is another player who ranked PNDs, which is Kero. Kero actually ranked Mountain of Fate above IN, and I believe, honestly, it's just because they played it with Reimu B. They played Mountain of Fate with Reimu B, and I just honestly think that with Marisa C, Mountain of Fate is easier than IN, for example. Okay, that's enough yapping about how this is gonna work, so let's just go into the details. UN. Well, UN, as I believe a lot of people know, when it comes to the PND, it's an extremely low number. Actually demands only 10. It only demands 10 billion. It's very little, and you really need only minimal strategies to do it. So little that in fact when I went for PND, instead of like what I usually do, which is trying to get a comfortably high score in practice for fun, I decided that for fun I would instead try to speedrun the PND, trying to get the least number of hours as possible, and I got 3. And I just did that by basically mostly just watching videos and not really playing as little as possible, and it worked! Because it doesn't really demand much out of the player. Survival-wise, actually, you know, you'd expect it to also be low, but since you have to wait for the mallet cooldown, very often you have to dodge, often also hard patterns. You also have bombs most of the time, so you can like time for the... just before something gets hard you bomb, and then you go back to dodging the easy part. But yes, there are also situations where you do want to keep the bombs for the score gain that you're gonna need for Sakuya, because Sakuya, by bombing, she can get a really powerful cancel, of course. And mechanics is... Actually, I didn't rate it 1, honestly, simply because there is a game with even simpler mechanics. But yeah, UM has really simple mechanics. There's just like a bunch of them, I guess, that you have to get used to, but all of them are pretty easy. I guess if you do shop manipulation and shit, it's really weird, and it's really weird to get used to. But it shouldn't be anything major. And the PND, this PND should be... It's most definitely 100% the easiest PND. DDC does not come close. DDC is the second easiest. And in this case, I'm specifically referring to Marisa B, although Sakuya B would be basically the same. Potentially easier than Marisa B, definitely not easier than UM Sakuya still. Right here I will discuss Marisa B because that's the character I played. And for strat, Marisa B is just... It's kind of funny because I feel it's kind of unique. When I went for PND, I actually could... I was basically copying the world record route. At that time, the world record was held by Neon Kichi. And it was like the 1915. I don't know why I pronounced it like that. But yeah, I would just basically copy that exact same route, and of course it was not optimal, but that's what's the route. Same bombs, same suicides, roughly. Maybe I changed only a few things. And even as I did that, the game was really simple strategy-wise, because again, with Marisa B, you really the only thing that you need to do is memorize where to bomb and when to bomb. And you have a lot of leeway to do that. You don't have to be precise at all, and you're still going to get a lot of PIV and score out of it. The survival requirement is at the lowest possible because, well, starting from, I'd say it was maybe around the second half of stage 3, you have so many lives and you are never ever gonna die. And when you die, you basically don't lose score. So yeah. If you go on Sukuna and you die, you are gonna lose score, which is always possible, of course. Perhaps you don't practice Sukuna a lot and you might die on her. But even if you do, like, you will not lose that much score, or to be more specifically, it should be very easy to score higher than 1.5 and then just lose a bunch of spell cut bonuses on Sukuna and still get the 1.5. Regardless, like, the game doesn't really ask for much if you just want 1.5. If you want a higher score, then the game would be very demanding when it comes to survival, because you have to cap as many patterns as possible. And mechanics-wise, DDC is pretty simple. You just have to get used to the tiny little details about the point of collection, which is... You might think there is not much to it, but there are some key details that are a bit unintuitive. For example, in stage 1 with Marisa B, there is this really funny bomb you can do, where you bomb and you can get a double bonus using the POC of the bomb. I myself do not exactly remember how that worked, but it was really weird. I believe it was something like you bomb, you transform some bullets into items and you POC them. And then there is a pause, you don't immediately cancel other items, you don't immediately cancel other bullets into items. So you get a POC, then the bullets cancel, you spawn more items, the items POC again, because the POC of the bomb is still going, and you get another 2.0. Oh, maybe not a 2.0, it was maybe a 1.2 or something like that. Still, that's really the only little detail about DDC mechanics. HSiFS with Autumn, and I believe other shots that are not Aya might potentially be a bit higher. Not by much, but Aya is definitely around here. The game doesn't really ask you for much score-wise. It only asks you for 6 billion, and it's pretty easy to get 6 billion. So you don't really have to do much. I learned HSiFS was my first PND, and I got it really fast, like 20 hours. And I was not some super player. I didn't even have an LND at the time. So yeah, just I don't really know how to express it. Just like you don't really have to do any precise cancel or strict release route timings. You just have to cancel, and in the early game get good PIV, which is not that difficult. The survival element is also at the very bottom of the list. This is potentially, I believe this is even easier than DC, because when it comes to HSiFS, with Autumn scoring, whenever you die, you lose very little score. The life itself in the clear bonus doesn't really give you much, and the potential release you're gonna lose by dying, since you're dead and you can't release, it's gonna lose you some score, but it's not gonna be much. You can die a lot and lose almost all of your lives, and you're gonna lose maybe 200 million, like that's the most you're gonna lose if you waste every single life as you die by accident. So yeah, and of course you delete basically every dangerous bullet in the game. You're only going to die if you grid releases. So if you die, it's gonna be because of strategies, and it's not gonna be because of raw dodging skill. I hope I got the point across. It's not so easy to talk so much English. I'm improvising this. I don't have a script or anything because I couldn't be bothered, and I think if I had written it, I wouldn't read it anyways. Mechanics-wise, HSiFS is a tiny step above when it comes to unintuitiveness. There is, first of all, the cooldown of the release increases as you get a higher level release, and very often that's gonna bite you in the ass when you least expect it, especially when you are not used to it at first. And there's also some weird quirks about how you delete lasers in the game. There are some key moments where you have to be very careful about how you delete lasers, otherwise you might delete the spawn point of the lasers. And that's like very unintuitive at first. And then just overall, like, I believe the timing between grazing bullets and collecting the season items, very often it's also a bit unintuitive. And thankfully, I believe at a very high level you have to worry about some really precise timings when it comes to collecting exactly enough sufficient amount of season items to get a precise release timing, but it is not the case for the PND level, so it's just a pretty low number of 3 right here. 10 Desires. So for 10 Desires, I actually want to start from the mechanics, because I think this is like one of the bigger jumps we've had so far. TD, I've placed mechanics at 5 because TD mechanics are very unintuitive. At first, like, the way spirits spawn, you have to look quite a bit into it before you can get consistent at strategies, because very often what happens is you do a strat, you do your regular routing, then you look at the PIV and you're like, wait, why am I behind 10,000 PIV? I did the exact same thing, what happened? A tiny difference in how quickly you killed enemies, or maybe perhaps you even lost a chain and you don't understand why. Or maybe you see the spirits that are in different positions because you accidentally broke the chain without realizing, and you question why are the spirits positioned differently. Because every time you break the chain, you are going to move how the blue spirits and grey spirits clamp up as you kill enemies and group a lot of spirits together. It took me a while to understand that detail, and that was with the help of a TD scorer. Shoutouts to Gnome for teaching me TD. Also shoutout to THK for teaching me HSiFS at the time. I didn't really have any help for DDC and UM. I'm gonna shout out everyone that helped me during the journey. And yeah, it's not even just the spirits that are a problem. When you play Yomu, you are subject to the RNG of the bomb, which depending on the routing can kind of fuck you up when you least expect it, and you have to get used to that as well. Also the Yomu Slash has some unique quirks when it comes to quickly proccing a chain. And yeah, this is the only reason why TD is kind of higher on the list, because if it's not for the mechanics, the actual survival and strategy aspect is very simple. The game is not very demanding. Survival-wise, you very often just kind of chain bombs and trances, so you don't really have to dodge at all. But there are some key moments where you have to generate trance without bombing, or without bombing, because you're gonna need the bomb for some other places where the bomb is gonna spawn you more spirits, so you kind of have to generate the trance by not bombing and dodging for a while. Not much, only at I only brought a 2 there, but still, like, it's not as simple as HSiFS and DDC where you can just perma bomb and perma release. The strategy aspect is it's not very demanding, but TD has this thing where it's really hard to learn any comeback, let's call it comeback routes, or well, comeback strategies, because anytime you fail to get a trance, you are kind of lost. It takes quite a while to build a trance back up. So if you fuck up, you might be a bit confused, or well, you might not know how to handle it. It actually happened to me in my run that got PND. The thing is that I had practiced a route that scored way higher than the PND, so I still managed to score quite high, even if I messed up the route quite a bit on, I believe it was Sega. But yeah, thankfully at a 3 billion level, most bombs and trances and spirit generations, most of them kind of neatly flow into each other without much trouble, so I still rated it quite low at a 3. Now we go on to WBaWC, my shining star in the sky WBaWC, and well, first of all, the survival is really simple in this game. You basically only the major dodging things that you need to do are on some like key patterns like linear creature, and I can hardly think of anything else. It's just that usually you'd want to, what is gonna hit you in this game is usually just you're deleting bullets with the otters and some bullets escape, and you need good reactions for that, but I wouldn't even call that raw dodging skill. So that's why I have WBaWC so low when it comes to survival requirement. Meanwhile, for mechanics and strategies, I was a bit, how do I say this, unsure about how to rate them, because the complexity in WBaWC stems, that's the word I think, from the fact that you have to manage many tokens at a time. and you need to know all the little details about the token management, even for PND level. And I wasn't sure where to rank that. I wasn't. That's not really just game mechanics. That's just like a more special way you deal with the game mechanic. But it's neither like strategy or routing. It's just like you have to read the tokens well, and it's not a skill that you have by default. You have to develop it over time. So I wasn't sure where to place it, but I'm pretty sure it can be roughly placed as a mix of strats and mechanics, I guess. So I kind of split the complexity between strats and mechanics right there, and I think that will suffice. Yeah, WBaWC, the actual like hypers are very simple, especially at 8 billion level. You can skip entire hypers and just easily chain bombs into hypers. Especially on like Kutaka, which is like a major component of the difficulty at some higher scores. But thankfully for PND, you can kind of just, I believe you kind of just skip the spells. And yeah, so the complexity is in just the base token management, which takes a while to learn, and that's the only reason why WBaWC is higher than everything below it. Otherwise, it'd be pretty simple. Now, fuck! Give me a second, wow. Going into LoLK, I think this is when, this is the first minor, I'd say the first relevant jump in complexity when it comes to PNDs. You could call LoLK the first mid-tier PND. This is because this time LoLK strategy-wise demands quite a lot out of the player, and what I think is very relevant when it comes to Raze, I'm talking about Raze specifically here, it constantly demands you to do something because you generate both PIV and raw score with Grace. You kind of always want to be gracing something, so you never have a break in this game. It's not hard as hard as other PNDs, of course, but it's definitely a relevant element. Now the survival is the survival element is definitely present. When you bomb, you don't immediately cancel the bullets, or well, you cancel some of them, but you're gonna have to dodge most of the bullets that are thrown at you. And it's not too difficult, because even if you get hit, it's kind of fine. But there are quite a few patterns where if you get hit too much, you do lose quite a bit of score. Thankfully, the vast majority of the score does come from simple spawn grazes and basically anything that isn't raw dodging. Spawn grazes, timing the bomb and the cancels, suicides and stuff like that. That's where most of the score comes from. But any score that comes from having to raw dodge for a few seconds it's a relevant element. So yeah. And mechanics are, there's a bunch of them, and especially when it comes to Raze and shields, they are at first a bit unintuitive, especially on patterns like Ring of Final. The iframes that you get and when you get them on shield breaks it's a bit weird to learn at first. It takes some time. And another thing that is gonna feed into strategies, I guess, is the fact that when you make mistakes and you go off route, basically managing the wrong number of shields, it's not too difficult, but it's definitely a skill that you have to learn. You don't just go into LoLK scoring already knowing how to do that from simple survival 1cc's. So it's gonna take a bit of time, but that part is not necessarily unintuitive, it just takes some learning experience, kinda like WBaWC, you know? HSA! Now HSA broke me when I first scored it, because HSA was the game that made me realize that you don't have to tryhard the stage 1. Although I ended up clearing HSA tryharding stage 1, and after looking into it a bit with a different perspective of the clear, that's when I first really realized, okay, I need to not pay that much attention to stage 1. SA demands a lot of grazes, really quite a bit of grazes on stage 1, 2, 3 and also 4. You have to do a lot of grazing. It's, I believe, much more prevalent than LoLK for PND. Here of course I'm talking about Rainbow A, which is most definitely the easiest shot to get PND with. The survival is also quite relevant because in the early game you have some planned suicides, but other than them you never want to die in this game because lives for the clear bonus are very big, they give a lot of score, and whenever you lose them you're gonna miss quite a bit of score. And the game itself is, well, let's just say for PND, if you have to include all the grazing that you have to do, it becomes kind of complex to not die, because realistically you don't want to die at all for PND in SA. You don't want to die, or at least you don't want to die outside of the planned deaths and the suicides, you know. What puts SA, I think, a bit lower than it would be is the fact that SA has the absolute easiest mechanics of all the PNDs. To the point that I'd say there are no mechanics that you have to learn going into SA scoring. Everything that you already know from survival. Maybe the only detail I can think of is the fact that if you stand above the POC line for quite some time, for like more than just a second, the graze, or wait, the POC from the communication gauge, you'd have that gauge loaded for more time than normal, and that's just a mechanic of how the communication gauge works if you stay above the POC line, and that's something that perhaps you don't learn in survival, but you can immediately learn in for scoring, and it's not even very, like, it's not something that is mandatory or extremely useful. It's key in some parts of the run, but takes a second to learn or realize or understand. Everything else is just bomb, correct time, dodge, graze. There are no mechanics. It's really chill in that regard. UFO! UFO is, you know, with UFO, I am always a bit unsure when I have to rate it myself, because my experience with UFO was very chill, and for many people it's quite hard, but I am confident in my placement, honestly. Just, I guess I'm not as confident as every other placement. Of course, UFO is a very hard survival game, and there are a lot of patterns where you just want to dodge them, because the bombs are very vital for graze, and graze is good for PIV. So lots of patterns that you really just want to dodge, and any safety bomb that you are gonna use for survival is going to cost quite a bit of score. The same goes for like when you in the early game choose to do red UFOs for extra lives. I believe every red UFO would cost you around 20 million in the early game. It's like, it can add up. Strategy wise, UFO is the type of game where very often you either gain everything that you need or you lose everything, because just because of the nature of the summons, right? Very often you kind of just miss the summon, it goes off screen, you fail the kill and you lose a fuck ton of score. Or you get a kill and you get everything that you need. It's on some UFOs you can just play suboptimally and intentionally miss some items. Though in my experience, maybe because I was dumb, but if I ever failed summons, it was rarely because I would get like... No, I'm using the incorrect word here. I would always worry more about actually missing the summons compared to just killing them early and get less items in the summon, and having the summon of course being safer because you get the early kill. But yeah, lots of grazing, not just summons, I forgot to mention the grazing, you know, Ichirin of course, some insane grazes that you have to do. Takes a while to learn them, and even when you do, I wouldn't even call them consistent, because very often you just get lucky or unlucky and you miss thousands of grays, and you kind of just live with that. At least when it comes to Ishirin, it's fine, it's kind of expected. Thankfully per PND, it's very easy to work around that variance and intentionally play a bit more aggressive in the late game if you get like bad Ishirin graces, and on the contrary, if you get really good Ishirin graces, you can play a bit safer in the late game, so that's a nice element. And for mechanics, it's all of them I'd say are simple, but there is a bit of them and you have to get used to them. Manipulating the summons, getting them to move, you have to be, how do I say this, you have to be very precise very often when you have to collect tokens and where you spawn the tokens, just because of how the tokens move in the game. And I believe there was also some quirk when it comes to like spawning, which color of the token you're gonna spawn, depending on what was the last color of the token you collected for a rainbow summon. That wasn't immediately apparent to me, it never was for survival, and that took me a while. So, simple mechanics, but there is a bit of them that you have to get comfortable with, and it's not gonna be immediate. EoSD. EoSD was the... EoSD kind of made me really mad when I went for it. It took me a lot of time. I would say that for almost every single PND I got very lucky and got them relatively fast. With EoSD, I believe I got unlucky and I wasted a lot more time than I should have. I needed like 10 stage 6s to get through EoSD. And I'm not just gonna attribute this to bad RNG, I actually believe that EoSD has... it's kinda hard to explain, but there is this element that pushes it a bit higher on the list, and it's that for every other game I could like score and practice I could practice a route that would score much higher than the PND goal, and it was always around maybe between 15 and 20% higher score than PND. And I did this for most games, and for every game that I managed to do this, I could, not easily, but it was quite comfortable to almost replicate that high level routing in credits and just fail it and still get a lot of score out of it. In EoSD, that did not feel possible. I had close to 600 million SOB, and yet I could not replicate none of that in credits. I had to play safe, which means any mistake would put me at risk of losing the PND. I don't know if I just played weirdly, suboptimally, there was something I was missing, but that was definitely a thing, and that is why I'm rating EoSD that high when it comes to strategies, because, man, they're complex. Lots of them are precise, the graces are precise, the timings are precise, and when you consider that you have to mix all of that with some really good dodging, because it's EoSD and bombs are very good for score gain, you have to do you ideally have to do a lot of dodging, and whenever you die by accident, you either fuck up the route quite a bit, or you have to lose a hefty amount of score. And mixing them together it was really complex for me. The mechanics, it's definitely not as complex as survival and strategies, of course, but mechanics do take a while to learn. EoSD is pretty unique, especially if you compare it to the first, how do I say this? It's unique when it comes to mechanics. The tiny details of the mechanics are unique when compared to PCB and IN, which are the games where EoSD is the games that EoSD is usually grouped with. For instance, in EoSD you can immediately graze, in PCB and IN you can't. That's just an extra example, but just a lot to learn. You need to learn about the bullet bonus, the the star items and how to manipulate them with bombs. Different characters are gonna have a different time when it comes to using their bombs. In this case with Rainbow B, it's the simplest, but at the same time, if you happen to fail, it's also the bomb I believe will lose you the most score, just because of how easily you can stock all the star items together on most patterns. And there's a lot of hidden details that are really hard to find out, and if it wasn't for people that had helped me during the EoSD grind, for people like Cacto and Kana, I would have never understood the fact that, for example, if you kill fairies in stage 6, before they shoot, they don't drop items. What? EoSD is full of weird mechanics like that. And maybe if you don't learn one or two of them, they are not gonna matter too much for score, but they add up. And there is a lot of them, and if you don't get comfortable with them, you might struggle without even realizing why you're missing score. PCB is where I believe we enter the PNDs that I would call hard. EoSD was still like maybe a mid-tier to close to hard tier PND. Now PNDs, Mountain of Fate and IN are actually hard. And PCB is hard mostly because of a mix of mechanics and strategies. PCB has really complex mechanics, a lot that you have to learn and get comfortable with. Cherry plus management, really complex. Basically, you have to constantly keep track of the cherry plus, and it takes a while to get used to your shot and how much it generates. The cherry items, you need to count them and shit, or keep track of the spell card bonus you have gotten during the run, because that's gonna affect how much cherry you get from the items, and tiny details about the clear bonuses, the star items, spell card bonuses, and how they increase with grace. Just a lot that you have to keep track of. And most importantly, not most importantly, just like another thing that adds up in all of this is the fact that, of course, if you want to get good PIV in this game, you have to graze unfocused for most of the time, and that complicates not just like just being used to the mechanics of the game and the strategies, but the survival as well. EoSD is known, EoSD, what the fuck am I saying? PCB is kind of known to having like a simpler survival than most games, but because here you have to dodge unfocused most of the times, it gets difficult. Of course, you can't just bomb during a border, you have to keep dodging, and your best bet usually is to focus for just a moment to do some precise movement, but I don't know why, maybe I'm just weird, but that's not a skill that comes easy to me. I kind of mess up whenever I try to do that, so very often I kind of just force myself to dodge fully unfocused. It did get very difficult sometimes. And of course, on Yuko, you really want to cap every single spell, and you want to cap them while you graze, so it's not easy to dodge all of that. It's not easy to do all of that shit. You can refer to those as strategies, but because you have to actually dodge, it's just... I have to include that as raw dodging. I believe like I kind of like mixed some of the points that I would have given to the strategy component. I have given it to mechanics and survival, mostly because in this game the routing those kind of mix with just pure survival and just knowing your mechanics really well, because otherwise PCB routing is kind of just memorize how much that you have to shoot and how many cherry items that you have to collect, and then start the border at the correct time. And once you do that, just dodge well and focused, and you get all the PIV that you're gonna need. There's like no weird bombs for grace. There's bombs for cancels, and there's bombs for cancel that also give you cherry. But those, in my experience, at least with Sakuya B, they're quite simple to deal with. I think the complexity comes from survival and mechanics more than strategies in PCB. What can complicate things, I guess, could be the fact that if you actually mess up your routing, it takes a lot of practice to know how to go back and route for PCB, because borders are kind of like TD trances. Once you break them, the route mess up is very major. Everything fucks up. You fuck up the cherry, you fuck up just the bullets that you've cancelled, you get less grays and shit like that. Mountain of Fate. I did talk a bit about Mountain of Fate at the beginning of the video, when it came to strategies, and I'll talk about it again. Mountain of Fate is the kind of game where the complexity when it comes to strategies is in the tiny details. The basic execution of the game is very easy, and that is why the PND requirement when it is so high when compared to the world record. It's like 97.5% of world record, if I remember correctly. Maybe recently it decreased because the world record has been slowly improving since last time I calculated that percentage. But yeah, strategies are there, but a lot of people, I think, would be scared just because of how close the score is to world record, but it's not as hard as you might think. Just learn the route, learn how to keep the PIV high, don't make it decrease, learn how to collect the items and how to damage the enemies and kill the enemies, and kinda complex, but not super hard either. Of course, the survival is the highest demand that you have for PNDs. This game is often compared to just being LNN+. I think that's an hyperbole, I think that's an over-exaggeration, because you don't, at least with Marisa C, you don't have to dodge PWG, you don't have to dodge Momiji, you can stack 4 options on Kanako, and that makes the fight much easier than just having 3 options, I can assure you. So the survival component is lower than LNN, but still when you mix it up with doing everything else for score, it does become definitely the hardest game when it comes to survival, for sure. Like, there is no... I don't think you can compare it to any other game. And yeah, that is especially relevant because if you die, you just have to reset. You cannot afford to die. Maybe with... I said that in the say you cannot die for PND level. If you do a lot of graces, you can maybe die once or twice in SA actually, but in Mountain of Fate you cannot absolutely die. You lose way too much score. Not a thing. It's either you don't die or you die and reset. So very demanding survival wise. Thankfully the mechanics are quite simple. There are some unintuitive stuff that is specific to Marisa C. Of course, there is the stacking, and stacking more than being unintuitive or like complex, is just hard. The timing is precise, and you have to be very conservative for how much you press, how quickly you have to press shift if you want to get the options in the correct position. Then there is some quirks about how the options sometimes immediately teleport, I believe, when you power up, or was it when you power down? I'm not sure, I'm not remembering right now, but it's a quirk that you have to pay attention to, for example, right after Nitori mid-boss in stage 3. That section took a while to learn, and it was because I couldn't figure out how that quirk about options worked, even with the help of Gnome that was in the chat explaining it to me. But yeah, other than option stacking and that quirk, I cannot really think of much else. The game is really simple. Mechanics wise, it doesn't really throw much at you. And then there is Ayan. the main of my fucking existence. IN is a game that took me a long time to clear, and on other games I'd say I'd gotten unlucky. On this game is just hard. This game just kicks your ass, because pretty much all three elements that determine difficulty in this game are all relevant. You see a 10, an 8, and a 10. I start from the survival because it's the simplest thing to explain, and it's just that, well, lives are of course very important for the clear bonus, so ideally you don't want to die at all. You can afford a few deaths, especially if you try hard the strategies a lot, but preferably you don't want to die. And for stages, like stages 2, 3 and 4 have some scattered patterns that can sometimes kill you, but they themselves are not too hard. Stage 5 and every other part of the game has this thing that is relevant to survival where, well, very often you want to graze for to get the time, of course, and you have to do that. Sometimes it's kind of reliant on just row dodging, and there is not really a way to avoid it, because if you bomb spells you lose too much spell card bonus and stuff like that, so it gets complex dodging. And lastly but not least, in the stage portions where you don't graze, well, you shoot unfocused, and you want to shoot unfocused a lot, and guess what? That might lead you to deaths because you are unfocused, and it's not so easy to dodge bullets while unfocused. When it comes to mechanics, it's hi man, I don't even know where to explain. You can just open the IN wiki, the gameplay page of the wiki, and you can start reading, and you are never gonna end. There is so much shit on IN, and sure, all the elements taken by themselves are not gonna determine your route or well, you winning or getting the score that you want, most likely, but when you add all of them up together, they're gonna matter. Familiars, frame quirks about how the familiars spawn and despawn, enemies shooting at different timings, how much grades you get from where your bar is positioned, how the communication gauge, I don't remember how it's called, the mystic gauge? Well, how that bar moves, how it's affected by grades, time, your shot, your team, star items, time, score that you get from time. It's just so much shit. It takes so much time to get comfortable with all of that, all of those elements, and you waste so much time. And the absolute worst thing is the fact that if you cancel bullets in the first, I believe, 8 frames of them spawning, you get double the time, and that makes so many patterns where you have to cancel using familiars so unintuitive, it's not even funny. Like normally a mechanic like this to me would feel just like a skill check, right? Get the timing well and you get rewarded for it, but here it's just unintuitive, because for me cancels are unintuitive when you can maximize the bullets that you cancel. In IN, you maximize the bullets that you recently cancelled. It's so weird, man. And then strategies are 10, because the game is very demanding of strategies. You have to constantly be doing either shooting unfocused for time, grazing for time, collecting items precisely, and you never stop. And compared to every other game, all of these things I mentioned are complex. They are more complex than anything that was before. And when you add to this fact the complexity of the mechanics, you get overwhelmed really fast. Did I forget to mention that Kaguya is a massive pain in the ass because of how much score that you end up that you get from her? Both survival and strategy wise, Kaguya has some really precise things. For example, like Orai Jewel, we all know you can do it vertical, you can do it horizontal. Both are hard for different reasons. They are both precise and for different stuff. And don't remember which game I think it was PCB. The way strategies and survival mix up in IN is very similar to PCB, where you have to... The way you gain score in this game is kind of by just dodging most of the time. The only saving grace that I felt for this game going for PND was the fact that the few bombs that you have, you can really use them to skip some of the really annoying patterns that... at least patterns that I find annoying. For example, Marisa second non, Marisa third non. You can skip Tewi mid non. You can skip... what's the fucking name again? Erin mid non. You can skip all of these patterns, and honestly, like, it makes the run much bearable, because you don't have to worry about randomly dying on these patterns. And even if you end up just accidentally getting hit during the run, you can death bomb, you lose 2 bombs and you might lose a spell card bonus, but at least you don't die and fuck up some timings. IN is truly the game that you either love it, and when you love it, you are gonna have so much fun because it's so complex and in depth, or you don't like it and you're gonna suffer because it asks so much for you and you don't really wanna bother with how much it asks out of you. And yeah, these are the reasons I ranked the PNDs like this. Like, I don't think going into more detail than this would be both very time consuming and probably not interesting for people watching, so I think this is enough. I guess I hope my difficulty rankings have satisfied the curiosity of some, and because I believe I have forgotten to shout out to most of the people that have helped me, I'll do it all the way here at the very end. I don't think not much there. DDC, I had a bit of help from RB. HSiFS, shoutouts to THK for the help. TD, shoutouts to Gnome for the help. WBaWC, of course, shoutouts to Borealis. And, of course, Myonkichi. It wasn't technically for PND, but I just have to shout out Myonkichi. It's fucking Myonkichi, my WBaWC master. LoLK, of course, shoutouts to RB. Great guy. SA, I believe I kind of just played by myself. For UFO, shoutouts to, of course, Lorenzo and RB and a bunch of people. I believe actually I kind of played the UFO mostly by myself. Now, and that's probably just because I did UFO very quickly. Shoutouts to Kana and Cactu for EoSD, they helped me a lot. And EoSD would have made so much harder without their help. Shoutouts to, well, a bunch of people for PCB, honestly, because I feel like I got a lot of tips from a lot of people on PCB. I cannot think of a single person that gave me a lot of tips, but I can think of many people. Kana, Spo, Victorin, shoutouts to them. Mountain of Fate, it was mostly Gnome. Gnome had a really high score on Moth as well, so they came in clutch. And then for IN, of course, shoutouts to all the... Much like PCB, I cannot think of a single person, but there were a lot of people that gave me tips. And I really needed them because IN was very difficult. Shoutout to Mariox, Rivers, Levea, some Japanese users, I believe, Kana. I can think of many names that helped me during IN. So, yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another fucking pointless video. Bye bye.